Today's topic is due diligence. So I said at the beginning that it was where the three success factors were timing, luck, and team. So finally we get to the team. How do you do due diligence on a team? Well, it depends on how deep you want to go. So let's start at the beginning is who founded this company? Are those founders or is that founder still at the company? And if not, why? It's not a yellow flag if they left, but it's interesting to find about the early history of the company. If you're talking to the founder, CEO now, or whether the founders moved to a different spot, or maybe the founder never was the CEO, or maybe they left, in which case you got to dig a little deeper and find out why. I said before, you should get all the resumes of all the management. You should do reference checks on them, and you should do background checks on them. And then you got to understand, how are they compensated? Did they put money, financial stake? Did they put money into this company? Is your money going alongside their money? Or are they just working? Are they sweat equity? Either way is fine, but it's interesting to understand that. How is the equity split across this team? Have they been in this space before? That's one of the key things that's one of the key ways to see if this company is likely to succeed is how many people in the management team have any expertise in this space that they're tackling. Have they solved this problem before? Have they provided solutions in this space before? Do they have a really good list of potential customers because they've been in this space for 10 years? What did they do before? This is one, when I was just an entrepreneur, we used to try and hire people that would let's try that again. We would try and hire people that had experience running teams slightly bigger than the team we were trying to hire them for. And so if that was the very first VP of sales, and he had no team whatsoever because he was like the fourth or fifth hire of the whole company, we would try and hire someone who has managed 10 or 20 or 30 people before, expecting at some point that we would be hiring 10 or 20 or 30 people for him. And same thing on the product side. We may hire someone who was working with, who was managing a 100-person team at Microsoft, because we expected that section of the business to get much, much bigger, and we wanted to make sure we had someone to manage that. Same thing in marketing, same thing in the rest of the groups. And then what we found was the people who had experience running 100-person teams usually couldn't run a 1 or 2-person team. It was a mismatch of their experience. They were used to a whole lot more support. And sometimes when we hired someone and they really didn't have a ton of management experience before, they had managed a team of 3 or 4 or 5, and then they got to 15 or 20, then we'd find out that often they broke down. They just couldn't, their processes didn't scale up to that size. So it's a really hard thing to do, depending on how fast these companies are growing, of getting the right person in the right position. And we'll get to boards in a little bit. That's one of the things the board members need to do, is to help make sure that this management team is managed in a way that people don't overscale or underscale the growth of the company. Anyway, back to overall team. Does the team have experience in marketing and sales and operations and whatnot? Is there anything missing from this team? How much are they in? Again, how much of them have money in this company? Often you just find little bits of investors mixed in with the management team on occasion. And how well are they getting along? The last one on the left is just what's left. What's on their to-do list for hires? Often when you get to the bigger companies that are doing Series A rounds, on the list of milestones will be a key hire or two. Right? It's a good sign. They know something's missing and they want to fill that gap, but they're waiting for your money to help fill it. And then we get to the CEO. So is the CEO an entrepreneur or a manager or both? And there's pros and cons to each one, right? Neither one is better than the other. And what I mean by entrepreneur is, visionary, outward looking, and manager would be someone who's much more inward looking. In my tech career, I had 5 startups, 4 of which I started, but we went through something like 12 CEOs in 20 years across those companies. We had one company that just couldn't find the right CEO, I'd say. Of all of those 12, the one that I would in a second hire again was not an entrepreneur, not a visionary. He was a manager. He had been a CFO and a COO. He could operate like no one else I'd ever worked with before, and I would put him in charge of any company I had after this, and I'd invest in him because he could just get stuff done and listen to the rest of the team that had all the vision parts. That was lovely. And I've worked with visionaries, and I've been the visionary, and sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't. Right? Somebody has to manage. This is one of those things where you're just going to feel it out, right? The person you're going to be talking to with this due diligence process is going to be the CEO. It's a yellow flag and a red flag when someone else is pitching you anything around the company, especially when you get to the level of due diligence. All right, has the CEO built a smart group around them? Right? If it doesn't look like there are smarter people around them than the CEO, just pass. Right? That's a bad sign. Have they built a good board of directors? Is it all insiders? Are there some outsiders on there? If it's all insiders and you don't like them all, pass. And again, is the CEO committed in here in some form? And then I've seen this on the list, and I included this, which is advisors. You usually wind up having some advisors in the company. Sometimes they're amazing people. Usually they're not. Really, the only question on here that's important is like, why did they join? What made them want to come in and advise these companies? And they should be open to taking your call or your email to answer those questions.
Hey, Looney.
Yeah.
So are these advisors paid or unpaid, or just what are we talking about here?
Okay. So advisors vary. There are advisors that are unpaid that just like the CEO or just like what the company's doing. The norm in the tech world is advisors get a little bit of warrants, like 0.1% of the company or 0.5% of a company, paid over 4 years in warrants. Those are generally the two I've seen. There's one fledgling that just handed a few percent of the company to an advisor who had an amazing resume, who says he's going to do a whole bunch of work, and we papered that up so that if he doesn't do all this work, he doesn't get all those shares. So that comes that way sometimes, and sometimes on a really rare occasion, there'll be a very active investor, and they'll say, "I'll write the check. I'll give you the $100,000 check, but only if I get to be an advisor or get a board seat or get a part-time position in the company." And I have some friends who do that as their only way that they invest in companies.